please give a really warm welcome to Elaine Thompson.
Thank you. Thank you. Right. Hello, everybody. I'm extremely excited to be here presenting this to you all today. I found this therapy 27 years ago. And when I found it, I thought that it was either BS, rubbish, or it's going to be the next best thing since sliced bread. So I trotted off to America to look and see, and what I saw astounded me. The woman who was doing this therapy claimed that she could regrow kidneys, that she could cure emphysema, that she could give people who couldn't walk their strength in their legs again. And so I paid a lot of money, and I went over there to find out whether it was true or not, and what I witnessed completely made my jaw drop to the floor. So I came home extremely excited, and I thought, this is 21st century medicine. This is the way we've got to go forward. So I'm here today to present to you everything to do with sound and frequency. And one thing, I don't know whether you're aware at the moment, but there is a sound on right now. Can you hear it? Yeah. Who can feel it? Great. I was just talking to the sound engineer, and he said, oh yes, I can feel it running up and down my back. He said, and I've had a lot of rib injuries. Well, this particular sound, and I'm going to just turn it down. So now you don't have it. This particular sound happens to be the resonant frequency of CBD oil, which I thought everybody might like a little dose of. But all sound will affect us in some way. Some people will like it, some people won't. And that is what I'm going to come to in my presentation. Excuse me. Right, it's now completely off. So, imagine a world where we could regulate insulin levels, eradicate hemophilia, repair kidney function, stop cancer from growing, reverse dementia, balance hormones for anti-aging, eradicate pain, depression and post-traumatic stress disorder, broken bones to mend much faster, regulate blood pressure and heal lungs, balance acid reflux, so many people get problems with acid reflux and hernias and things like that, cure emphysema and neutralize drug addiction. Does that sound all a bit far out, as if you can't do that without medication? Well, I have to stand here hand on heart and say that I have helped people with these sorts of diseases to make themselves better. And my speciality has been what I call the sick end of the scale. So I have dealt with people over the last 27 years with everything you could think of, from MS to paralysis to Parkinson's to total immune system breakdown. You name it, and I've done it. And my life has been very, very interesting, and I have learned a whole lot along the way. When I first started, I was learning as I went. But now I'm in the place where I now teach what I do, because I think everybody should know about this. Everybody should know that this is available and that you don't necessarily need to go and see a doctor and have a pill. You can learn to do this for yourself, and it is available. So what exactly is this sound and frequency that I use? Everybody's familiar with gongs and bowls and Tibetan bowls and forks and things like that, and music, which they all have their place in the realm of healing people. But the one thing that always foxed me, I thought, well, it's beautiful. I feel great on the day. I've had a lovely tuning fork session. but it doesn't last. It doesn't tackle, if somebody came with paralysis of the leg, it doesn't help towards fixing it. And so I believe that this methodology, using computer technology, using very, very specific frequencies, is the answer. So frequency is a universal language, the universal language of everything. Everything is made up of millions of frequencies. How do we know when a distant planet has a mineral or whether it has oxygen on it? The scientists or NASA or whoever they are send out a signal, and then they read what comes back, and it gives them a bar graph of sound. Then they can identify various elements and say, oh, this planet has hydrogen, or this planet has methane. It's all in the numbers. And your entire body, all the time, with all your muscles and your chemicals and your energy body, is creating millions of frequencies all the time. And you can't hear them, but they're in your energy field. And thoughts as well, too. So this is when a clairvoyant comes along, or a psychic, I should say, comes along and says, oh, yes, I can feel that you've had a hard time. So it's written in your energy field in frequency. And we use an amazing part of our brains to translate it. People who have this clairvoyant psychic ability have learned to translate what is in someone's energy field. I used to be able to put my hand on somebody's arm, especially my son, who used to drive him crackers, and I don't know what he was been doing last night. He'd say, oh, Mum, don't do that. So we're also subject to external frequencies. And I'm not just talking about Wi-Fi and all the things that we get thrown at us. We're in a sea of frequencies, but also from other people, the people we live with, the problems that happen. These are external frequencies that come in to alter our way of being. And a simple example is if you get a phone call from someone you love and they tell you something really sad. Okay, you say, well, I'm just being sympathetic. But no, your chemistry has changed. Your whole demeanor has changed. Your frequency has changed to be in sympathy with them. And these are simple things, but sometimes the simple things we completely pass by. We don't think about them. And my aim today is to get you to think. So what does frequency mean? Is something that is measured in numbers and by Earth time. So we understand it as a language. How many cycles per second is something going? Piano, A at 440 cycles per second. And we can translate those numbers into pitch, color, musical notes, light, because light is actually sound particles vibrating at a certain pitch, like color red. The middle of the color red vibrates at 640 nanometers. Very, very fine vibration. So it doesn't have a particle, well, it does have particles of light in it, but it's different to the physical body. And I deal with the whole spectrum of it, both the light and the energy. And as I go along, you'll understand what it is I'm talking about it. So this is how we understand what frequency is. And you don't always hear it. We're subject to all sorts of stuff, but your body does. Your radar, your energy field picks up stuff all the time. And I know you people in Glastonbury are highly tuned, well, not just from Glastonbury, highly tuned to the energy of other people. We all know if you go into somewhere and you're stood next to somebody, you think, oh, I don't know whether I like that. Oh, I think I'll stand here. Or when you're instantly in harmony with someone, you think, wow, what a lovely person. I could sit here and talk to them all day. And that is because they are giving you the tones in their voice that you need to make you complete. Yeah, it's all about balance. So every color in the visible spectrum, as I just said, has its own specific frequency, and each has a different wavelength. We don't hear it, but we feel it. And when I say feel it, I'd like you to think about this. What did you choose to put on today? What color? Lady over there, I can see looking down at her orange t-shirt. She is wearing a physical thing, which is orange pigment. And that pigment is good for your body. That tells me that you need D sharp. But the energy, or every color, has a light component. Have any of you ever sat and stared at something, a bright color, and then saw an aura around the edge, a different color? Every color has its own light component. And your body has chosen that because it needs orange physically, but the light of that is going to be somewhere in the magenta, not the magenta, the violet area, which is what your energy needs. Yeah? So this is why we automatically choose what color we want on our walls. I like this. And why they say blue is a cold color, and why they say, you know, red is too loud, too noisy. And this is a most important point. Musical notes and color also relate with astrological signs. And this is the key. Most importantly, so do you. And on those little pieces of paper I've given you, you will see the notes all the way through, and you will see that C matches Aries, C sharp matches Taurus, and that would be what you call your birth note. And believe you me, I could stand here for half an hour and give you the whole science between how we discovered this was true and all the proof that goes with it, but I'm not going to bore you with that. Just trust me on this. This is how it works. So you have all these astrological signs with their own color and their own frequency. But each one of you is very, very different, depending on the date, the time, whenever you were born, and the situation you've incarnated into, your body, your parents, and so on and so forth. And your voice in all of this is the speaker that displays your entire status, like a television. It will tell someone whether you're happy, you're sad, whether you need to be healed, whether you're angry. And we just don't even think about that. We talk constantly. I mean, my voice is showing I'm excited. But we don't think about it because we do it every day. We don't give it a second thought. But you know it when someone calls you and you feel their excitement. You are feeling that frequency from them, and your brain is translating it. So what can this kind of frequency do? Now, I use frequencies. That note that was on there, as I told you before, was a low within the brainwave range. Now, scientists have said that between 0 and 30 hertz, we have delta, theta, alpha, and beta. And they say when we're walking around in a normal state talking, we're mostly using beta waves. Well, I have been to the Half-Elder Institute of Brain Studies in Germany, been on all the machines, and I can tell you now that it is much more than that. There's stuff going on all the time. I'll get to that in a later slide. And people who are naturally clairvoyant have the wide band between 0 and 2, the delta waves, pumping out all the time. That is something that is turned on all the time. And it's a state of being. You know, when you say meditate and you drop your brain waves down to alpha or delta or theta, well, if you go to theta, you probably fall asleep. But it's important to understand that the overall thing I'm doing is I'm discovering what your patterns are, and I'll explain a bit more in a minute, and then replacing those out of balance patterns with brainwave equivalents. So This is what frequency can do. It can most definitely stimulate biochemicals in the body. I recently had a student who at 43 was pregnant for the first time. She phoned me up and she said, I'm 2 weeks overdue. They want to put me on they want to inject me and induce the pregnancy. Can you give me anything? So I gave her, as she was a student, she had the equipment there, the sound of oxytocin and prostaglandin oxytocic. And within 3 minutes by the clock, she went into labor. She was in labor, you know, she was having the contractions for quite a while. She thought, right, I'll go off to the hospital now, la, la, la. She left the box behind. The contractions, when she got to hospital, contractions should slow down. So she sent her husband back for the box, put it on, and delivered the baby. First baby at 43 within 2 hours, no problem. And this is something that you can, in the field of medicine which helps, but is non-invasive and doesn't harm you, this is an absolute godsend. You know, can you imagine if I could, well, I can give you the frequency of all sorts of things. Mind you have to know what you're doing. And people say to me sometimes, oh, can you give me the frequency of cocaine or heroin? No, I can, but you see, unless it's in your body, it's not going to touch you. It won't have the same effect as cocaine, because cocaine is a synthetic substance. But if you ask me to turn on your happy vitamins, you know, progesterone or a vitamin like a tryptophan or something like that, yes, I can stimulate that. I can make the molecules that match that sound in your body vibrate so that you get a lift. And this is also good too for medical drug addiction. One of my students years and years ago, he was a researcher, a fellow of York University, came to me and said, well, I don't know about this sound, you know, I do this, that, and the other. I said, well, and he gave me his history, and he'd been on amitriptyline, which is an antidepressant, for years. So I said, well, why don't you just get on the sound bed and I'm going to show you what I can do and see how you feel. So I slid the frequency of amitriptyline on the speaker. And he led there and he said, wow, he said, I've just got a rush like I get when I take the pill. And I said, yes. I said, that's because I've just stimulated amitriptyline in your body. Your body's full of it. So I've proved time and time and time again that this will happen. In the early days, we used to use niacin to bring about a flush in the body. When I say niacin, the frequency of niacin, but then you have to have plenty of it in there, but it would bring about a flush, which is another, you know, very visible sign. You taking pictures? A very visible sign that something is happening. A very important point, we can release and erase old emotional patterns. Now, lots of people these days are healthier than they were, but what we do get is old stuck emotions, habits that we can't seem to break. And sound, because of what people tell me when I'm interviewing them, when you talk about that past event, that's something that may have triggered this problem, your voice will give me the frequency that is attached to that thing. Even if you say, oh, I don't want to talk about that. When you say, oh, your body is giving it to me. It gives me what I need. Because your body, whether your head says no, your body says, yes, please, do it. And sound can also put out fire. The potential for low-frequency sound is enormous. Have any of you seen the YouTube video of somebody putting out a fire with a sound? No? Go look it up. It's a guy there with a big bowl full of burning oil. And he takes this sound speaker, plugged in with a sound, and he points at the fire goes out immediately. And I sat there and thought, oh, I know what he's doing. And I worked out the frequency. He has a frequency on that counteracts and cancels out oxygen. Without oxygen, the fire cannot burn. And I will say that in North America, the fire brigade, or whatever you want to call them, up there, have adopted this and is starting to use it. And I also had, way back when, years ago, I had a man write to me who was in the government, but he was chief of all the water board things, you know, all the where they process the water for people. And he said, we've had a terrible, terrible problem with this green bacteria. So we can't get rid of it because when we put something in there to kill it, the cells explode. He said, and the water becomes more toxic than it was to start with. And he said, I wanted to write and tell you that we're using 20,000 hertz sound. He said, and it completely annihilates the bacteria without having to put anything into the water at all. Good one. So this is a picture of your brain with all the waves going up and down. And this is scientifically proven that thinking, reasoning, speech, and full-blown emotions are seen as frequency patterns in the brain, which exactly match the tones of your voice. If you sing a note, say in the note of A or whatever note you sing, whatever frequency that note is will spike in your brain. I've been there, I've done it, I've had the wires on, tested it all, and it's absolutely true. And this is why what we say and what we think, this is why it affects our chemical makeup so quickly. When you have a thought, that's frequency. And that thought can suddenly make your solar plexus, if it's a fear thought, can make your solar plexus go weird. Or if it's a happy thought, you suddenly feel like bouncing because you are controlling your body chemistry, even though you don't know it. And this empowers us to think about what we do. You know, when people say, oh, think positive thoughts, yeah, it is better for your health. We live in a world full of constant frequency, impossible to escape. So what we've got to do, as I said, I think on the Saturday lunchtime, is we've got to adapt. And we've got to alter our frequencies to be in harmony with it, or to cancel it out, or so that it won't affect us. This is what people in relationships do. They find someone with a harmonizing pattern, and then they live together as a complete whole for as long as that pattern lasts, until maybe one of them changes, then it starts to feel uncomfortable. But what's happening right now that has an even bigger effect on us, and I know Piers Corbyn is coming on Sunday night to talk about climate and stuff like that, and I have my own opinions on all of that, but I can tell you now, as I do study solar science and everything that NASA puts out, but also the things that NASA doesn't put out, and I know that we are going through a huge solar cycle now, an event, it's like the event of the millennia, longer than that, and that we are being affected by particles and energy coming in from the sun and from outer space, more so than ever before. And this is why we are changing. Our consciousness is changing. The type of clients I get is changing because we are learning to lift and adapting, lifting our vibrations to match the world we want to live in. We're all growing towards it. And our top priority, as always, is be aware. So when you experience body trembling inside, or you think, I must be going senile because I can't remember anything, or you misplace things, or you start having out-of-body experiences, these are all symptoms of what is happening to us right now. You are fine. It's okay. Don't panic. And I'm thinking actually of putting out a little booklet that kind of gives some of the weird things that I've been through. And I have a network of friends who all over Britain, who all come back to me with what they've been feeling. So I'm double checking that people are feeling this too. So let's just take a close look at allopathic medicine for a moment, matching drugs with biochemicals. And I just told you that I can stimulate things in your body, and I can also antidote chemicals that are in there. Doesn't mean to say you mustn't think about stopping taking them. But what does it have to do with frequency? Now, a very, very common thing is GABA and ibuprofen. Many people take ibuprofen until actually they came out with a bit of a warning a while ago and said, actually, don't take too much. Don't take too much ibuprofen. GABA is a neurotransmitter that balances neuron activity in the brain. I have used the frequency equivalent for that with people with dementia. It makes a huge difference. Children with autism turns a hyperactive autistic child into a quiet one. And its frequency is in G sharp. I'm not going to give you numbers at the moment because that goes too far. So its balancer on the seesaw is hydrochloric acid, the exact frequency. So if you are well and your neuron activity is balanced, then you have good digestion. Your hydrochloric acid, your digestion is working fine. Ibuprofen happens to be the same frequency as GABA. So what it does when you put it in there is interfere with the GABA receptors. And it affects your digestion. So if you have too much ibuprofen, you end up with loss of memory and indigestion. And lo and behold, it's even written on the packet that those are the most common side effects. And then the other thing was at the bottom of the last thing is thyroxine and caffeine. Now, if any of you have ever suffered with hyperactive hyperthyroidism, or you have an overactive thyroid, you will know that you can get very, very jittery and you lose weight, and it becomes a serious problem. But also, for those of you who've ever done this, if you overdose on coffee, you can also get very jittery. And I'm talking about drinking a lot of coffee, jittery and stuff. Well, guess what? Thyroxine is the same frequency as caffeine. It's a no-brainer. This is why people who have an overactive thyroid cannot drink coffee. So your voice reveals everything about you. So what do you do when you don't feel well? The symptom is the first big flag. It's like, be aware of your body. So if you get a headache, or you have you just don't feel right, pay attention to it, especially these days. It's like I find that things come and go now very fast. If you pay attention to it, give it your attention, and you can almost ask your body to help you to calm down, sort this out. So do you look for the root cause and the solution, which is actually something an allopathic doctor doesn't do. They don't look for the root cause. They go to the symptom and try and squash the symptom, which is your body's way of saying, here, this is, you need to deal with this. I know we all go for a paracetamol or whatever when you get a headache. But when it comes to something a little bit more serious than a headache, then you need to really pay attention. So do we then go and look and find the emotional state and circumstance that may have caused that symptom? And easy peasy, you've had a mad, stressful day with the kids, or you've had a rough day at the office, and you come home with a headache or whatever. So you can go to a therapist, you can grab a pill from the cupboard or whatever, or how about you just balance your voice and the symptoms disappear? Nice, easy. And this is a little chart about muscle frequencies. Now, when I said to you everything has a frequency, indeed it does. And this is just a basic overview. So when you see this body here with the note of G pointing to the thigh, that means that overall, that's the note of G. And I was talking to somebody who was out at the front door earlier on, And she was looking at the chart saying, oh, yeah, this looks like me. And she was telling me a little bit about it, which was exactly in the note that I knew she needed. So if you've had a stressful day at work and you've got, say, maybe a tight headache and a stiff neck, that means that your balance of C sharp and G and E and A sharp is out. It means that you've, and also say you get something like repetitive strain injury. That's C sharp. That's all about tendons and ligaments in the body. And the C sharp sits on the other side of G. So there are patterns and patterns and patterns that you can identify with numbers all over the body, and it's not hard to find them. So what about really deep emotional trauma? You're never upset for the reason you think. We go about our daily lives and we get upset about this, that, and the other. But generally, there's an underlying something. Maybe you didn't feel very loved as a child. Maybe, who knows what you may have felt. We all have our own stories. Or maybe you don't love yourself enough. You don't give yourself enough time. And these form the basis of our belief system. And so we act accordingly. Even though we don't realize that that's what we're thinking, we act accordingly. So events, traumatic events, patterning from childhood, they are imprinted in your body as a set of frequency patterns. And you can hold them emotionally, mentally, in your energy field, or you can hold them in your body. I had a client once who had a serious event with her husband. And her husband had attempted to strangle her. So not only was she traumatized, but when I put the sound on, her throat started to close up because her muscles were telling me that she held the trauma of that grip in the muscles. And you know how we look at people who have heart transplants, the memory of whatever that person was stays in the organ, in the heart or the liver or whatever. We have all kinds of things. Now, if I put sound on and you've had a broken leg, the sound pushes its way through your body, and then where the injury is, it kind of meets an energetic block. So you will feel that zizz, that buzz, and maybe even an ache or a pain, and think, oh, God, I broke that leg 10 years ago, blimey, But what it's doing is like conditioner on your hair. The sound is trying to straighten out the energy so the flow comes back into old injuries, so that there's not a block there that can cause maybe arthritis or stuff later on in life. And some people get alarmed and they say, oh, wow, this is hurting. And I say, it's all right. Just let it work for a minute or two, and then it'll go boop and pass straight through. So it's quite a phenomenal thing. And when you come, if you come to see me, it's not about listening to the sounds. It's about feeling it, because these are low brainwave sounds. I'm going to demonstrate some more later on if I get a chance. And it doesn't matter what they sound like. It's what they feel, what your individual body does in response, and everybody is different. And when I say multiple octaves too, when I show you a voice print later on, you'll see that some people store sounds in alternate octaves. And children store things very, very high frequency. So your health and your voice. We all get varied health problems because we're all so very different. Everybody knows that you can have 10 people in a room with someone with something highly contagious, and 6 people will get the problem and 4 people won't. The scientists say, we don't know why that happens. I do. I know why that happens. It's because of the strength or weakness in your voice. And that, again, will be redefined again according to your astrological sign. According to your astrological sign. Each one of you has a very specific individual octave of sound. And of course, it depends on how happy and how not happy you are. So everyone has a unique octave of sound, astrologically calculated and using a specific scale and pitch. I do not use A440. I'm not going to tell you what I use because I have to shoot you all. So, well, not unless you come and do the training. But it's really, really important. And I have gone and stood in front of scientists and doctors. The second I mention astrology, done. Close their books, they're not even listening. But common sense, astrology has been around for thousands of years. And we all know if you get a good astrologer and you look at your personality type, there'll be all the different flavors, but it's very, very accurate. And there is a gentleman here in the audience who has helped me design, we have designed between us, or he's done most of the work, this perfection of scale and pitch to suit I've had 27 years in which to find it, in which it really, really works for the human physical body right here, right now. Now, this is what we call, we call this a pod. And imagine, I've written some notes up there, but imagine this is a bit like the, what do you call it, man? Yes, the Vitruvian man. And up there at the top, if you were an Aries, you'd have the note of C, but in your particular shade. And at the bottom, you'd have F sharp, and at the sides, you'd have D sharp and A, and down on those angles, fourth and fifth, musically, a musical fourth, musical fifth, you'd have anything to do with your past, childhood, spiritual, genetic, and so on. And these sounds, we put all of these in combination into formulas of sound which make other sounds and harmonics. Is very, very interesting. So what happens if you have, you're very self-obsessed? And I mean this in the nicest way. You're very, very worried about your health or something like that. And you spend all your time buying vitamins and minerals and going to people and trying to get healing and all the rest of it. You can have an excess of your birth note, which throws out the one in the bottom, which is why people who are obsessed with certain things never seem to be able to get a job, or they don't have much success, or they may revert to the self because they've got no confidence out in the world. Because this opposite side is all about the face that you show to people like I'm showing to you now. You can see me, this is my outside face. If I recorded my voice, my F sharp would be through the roof, because that's who I am, I'm a Libra. And the one at the self, that's the self that only you know. Only you know, your inside self, that little bit that you keep for yourself that's you. So your inner and outer, when it's nicely balanced, is great, because then you become a very calm, confident person, and you get the benefit of the balance. Now, these two from the outside, the D sharp and the A, those two notes are affected very strongly by outside influences. It starts when you're born, your mother and your father, outside influences. Then there's the schooling. Then there's the things you learn. Then there's relationships. And it can even go to, I got hit by a car. That's an outside influence that happened to me. It's not anything to do with my inner outer. It's something that happened to me, but I do feel that the inner outer sometimes creates things. Sometimes people create stuff in order that they get the care and attention that they want, that they need. Particularly so, I have to say, with people who develop multiple sclerosis. The emotional thing with multiple sclerosis is fear of failure. And that can sometimes come, and believe me, I've seen hundreds of people with MS, can sometimes come from something that they've attempted to do and failed, and they're afraid to ever do that. It was such a disastrous fail, they're afraid to ever do that again. Or parental expectation, when you have a parent who says, oh, pushes you all the time to be a doctor, a nurse, or, whatever, and you never feel good enough. They're always telling you, well, yeah, I could have done better. And so rather than fail, you retreat. And multiple sclerosis is usually seen in the note of D. And interestingly enough, myelin and sphingosine, sphingosine is what makes myelin, are in the note of D. When you don't have any D, your body cannot produce myelin successfully. And another interesting thing that I will mention now about MS, women who have MS, who get pregnant, usually have what they call a recovery from MS. They gain the strength in their legs again. They become better. Now, and also they say that marijuana, having marijuana oil will benefit them and takes away the pain and helps them walk better and so on and so forth. Well, what happens when you're pregnant? Your progesterone levels go up. Marijuana, in its full state with THC and CBD, is the same frequency as progesterone. So once their levels drop down again, they start developing the symptoms. And I have had many people with MS, and I've actually said to them, if I could cure you, how would that feel? Remember, all your benefits and your carers would go. You'd have to get a job and support yourself. And the fear is so strong that they'll only go so far with their treatment. I can improve things, bring a voice, eyes, whatever. I can improve things, but there is a very deep and real fear with MS. So coming back to this, these are outside influences. So this can be your wife or husband, your partner, your kids, drive you crazy. And then if we want to connect you all up to your childhood and things like that, to bring these things to the surface, there are certain configurations of sound I can use. So what happens at a sound therapy session? You fill in a medical questionnaire for me, and you give me every last detail you can think of. And I will say something now that is quite strange. Deaths, people who have gone through grief and who are missing someone, even if it's a pet, a husband, a wife, if I give you back the frequency, and I can calculate it usually, especially if it's a pet, if you know the birth date, if I give you back the frequency of that which you are grieving over and missing, it makes you feel totally different. Doesn't mean to say you forget them, you don't. But it takes away the gut-wrenching grief, and it makes you feel you have a calmness that comes inside of you. So that's another area in which you can use this, helping people get past grief and loss. And I'll give another example now of women who have abusive husbands, or husbands who have abusive wives. And they get beaten up, and they go off to a safe house. What do? They go back. It's because the person that is doing this has a frequency they desperately need. So when you give them the frequency of their abuser, suddenly they think, I don't need that anymore, I can walk away. And they do. I've done it. They have. It works. So then you get, in a session, you would talk about, and I go back right the way through your life, to childhood and so on, and I take different recordings. I calculate formulas, and then I put you on the most comfortable bed ever, and you experience the sound. Because I just thought you'd like to know actually how it is I work. So this is a voice print, and this is me feeling like absolute poop one day. I woke up and I was thinking, oh my God, the world's going to end. Why do I bother? We all get days like that when you just wake up and you think, I can't stop this negativity going on in my head. And so up there, and I haven't got a pointer, but if you can see the numbers across the middle, there's a thing on the end called C+1. That is the female octave where women's voices usually are. C-1, sorry, thank you, Phil. The octave below is where men usually have their voices, and the one above is children. This is generalities. I'm talking generalities now. So for me to have, and this refers to my physical body, my meat and bones body. So if I want a healthy physical body, I need sounds all the way across there. And this is what my voice looked like in a bar graph. So you can see I'm all over one side. The middle bit, and the F sharp in the middle, which is me, was flat on the floor. I was feeling like, oh, God, what am I going to do? And with that, you see the blue bits, which is all about mental activity, thinking, creativity, and brain chemistry. So I was feeling like, oh, you can't think straight. Brain fog. So I gave myself some sounds, which I want to do because that's who I am. And I slept with the sounds on my body all night. And it's a little box like this. I can program your sounds on there, and you can tuck it into your clothing. You can wear it. If you have a stressful job, you can put this in your pocket and have the sounds that keep you calm all the time, so you don't get an ulcer. You don't get a headache at work because you're counteracting the sounds, and I'm trying to teach your brain to make these sounds for itself. I went to bed all night, and then I took my voice. I woke up the next day feeling really empowered. You know what? One of these days when you get up, you feel like Amazon woman. Bring it on. And so you can see that my line is good all the way across. And it looked like that. So that was an overnight change. And when you put them together, you can see exactly negative, positive. It's not perfect, but I'd sooner be positive than negative. And a recent client I had, this was his voice, and he had barely anything in his voice, mostly A sharp. He had post-traumatic stress disorder, Gilbert syndrome, which is to do with the bilirubin in your liver and the bile and so on and so forth. Severe insomnia. Think about melatonin as a natural hormone in the body. You can stimulate melatonin. He was in flight or fight mode constantly. He had night terrors because he actually was, I won't say because this is being filmed, he was in the services of some sort and he witnessed a lot of trauma. Poor man. So there was a lot of things that were repeating patterns in his head. So he used to get night terrors and he also had physically spasms in his neck and a few other things. So that's just an example, because there can be more variations in how your voice looks than there are hot dinners. Now, all right, I've been showing you just general notes, but if we want to get really specific, I also take a spectrograph waveform. And I can look at that, and everything in there means something to me. All the little drop downs, which are the weak spots, and all the ones that stick up, which are the spikes, mean something. And this was my voice after I'd had too much strong coffee. So I do this out of curiosity. I think, oh, okay, what does my voice look now? You know, because I was really buzzing. And so I can identify, we have the most incredible database of every chemical you can think of. And believe you me, I worked with the Merck index, the chemical index, for years to learn about body chemistry and the chemicals that affect us, like air fresheners, plug-in air fresheners, nightmare. They can make you feel suicidal. They have chemicals in there that interfere with what's going on in your brain and really make you feel bad. So whatever you do, you know, avoid chemicals at all cost, I would say, because that happened to me actually driving up the motor one day. I was on the way to visit my daughter, feeling great, and I bought an Ambipure. Now, you would think Ambipure was great, because I thought, oh, it's real oil in there. By the time I got to Reading, I was thinking, what's the point of being alive? I felt really, really, I could have, and then I thought, hang on a minute. And another thing you can do too, it's like a quick solution when you are feeling terrible, sing. Tone. If you've got the strength, and the reason I do this is because a lot of my clients didn't have the strength. But a quick fix, tone, overtone if you can, but just make as much noise, sing along to the radio, do whatever you can, because you're breaking the pattern of whatever it is that ails you by interfering with it, with music or song. Even listening to music, that's why music makes you feel so good. So, this is a little case study. This is not her real name, but Natalie, age 3. Her father brought her to me because she had von Willebrand's disease. Now, I didn't know what that was when he first told me about it. But von Willebrand's disease is apparently the worst form of haemophilia you can get. Her blood did not clot, no way, no any time. And so consequently, she spent most of her life covered in bruises, with the internal bruising from being picked up. She was very sensitive. And at one point, they got pulled in, because they took her to the doctor, and the doctor said, what is all this bruising going on? What's all this? And that was when they discovered that she had von Willebrand's disease. I hate the word disease. Don't ever own a disease. And it's not a disease, it's just an imbalance. If you start to take yourself out of the mentality of disease and sickness and into imbalance, it's so much kinder to yourself, so much kinder. So this is her pretty little voice, which you can see goes up, down, up, down, up, down. And when you have a child who's 3, they can't answer questions. They just want to talk to you about toys or sing. And before the age of 5, that's fine, because they don't carry the emotional baggage that we carry. They've got nothing to hide. They just are who they are. And it's wonderful. So I measured her voice, and that was the pattern I got. And you can see that her voice is mostly up in the child octave, where it should be. Few bits and pieces up there, but also some notes down at the bottom, some subharmonics. That usually tells me that something chemical is going wrong in her body. And with women, full-grown women, that's generally a sign of hormone problems. So I analyzed her voice with the spectrograph, and it looked like this. And from that, and mind you, considering I didn't know anything about von Willebrand's disease to start off with, I have to do a major amount of homework. So first of all, I found out what it was. Then I thought, okay, blood clotting factors. There's about 14 of them, and they all work like dominoes. You have to have all of them to get proper blood clotting. So one acts after the other. And in her voice, after a lot of research, because there's a lot of numbers involved with this, I discovered that there was prothrombin, vitamin K2, which is a blood clotting agent, the von Willebrand factor, and tranexamic acid, which also clots the blood. And that's what her father carried around. He carried an EpiPen around with tranexamic acid, and whenever she had fallen down, he took her straight to hospital, gave her a jab, and they monitored her until she stopped bleeding, which was usually 48 hours, 3 days, long time. I mean, she really had it bad. So I gave her those frequencies, but I also balanced her body. And interestingly enough, really? Only 5 minutes. Interestingly enough, her father was born on the same day. So there was an interaction going on between her and her father, which was why she was probably so unbalanced at birth. Why a genetic thing, they call it a genetic thing, shifts down, and so on and so forth. So I said to her father, I said, I don't know if this is going to work. It may work, it may not work, but you'll have to tell me if she falls over at nursery or bumps herself or whatever, we'll see. 2 weeks later, she fell down at nursery. He phoned me in a panic. He said, what shall I do? She's gushing with blood. She'd bitten through her lip, pouring with blood. I said, can you please just wait 5 minutes before you stick anything into her and all the rest. 10 minutes, and her blood clotted perfectly. And she is now, I don't know what she is, 9, 10, 11, 12, something like that. And she's absolutely fine. Because being 3 years old, her brain grabbed what I gave her, and she had her sounds on all night, in the room, not even on a headset, in the room, all night, every night. And it retrained her brain to start making those frequencies for itself, and that's what it does. And I just realized I've only got 5 minutes, and this is so sad because I was going to tell you about Derek, who had clinical dementia, and I'll put it into a nutshell. I was on Radio Bristol. His wife called me. She said, can you do anything? He's got to a stage with dementia. He has to go into a home because I can't lift him. He can't walk. He can't speak. He can't eat. He's incontinent both ways, all that. So her son and his wife carried Derek into my house. Now, Derek, his birth frequency was very, very close to GABA. I can't go into the history now because I haven't got the time. I gave him the frequencies I knew worked very well for dementia. And all I could get him to say into the microphone was after his wife said, say A, B, C. So he said A, B, C. And I caught that, and I analysed it, did the whole works. And of course, they got him onto the couch, and he fell asleep. But when you listen to sounds, you start to tingle. And he woke up, and he started scratching his leg. And then he started scratching, and I thought, oh, we're getting a response here. And I was going through the sounds. I was talking to his wife, and he was on the bed, and he was like, Sparko. All of a sudden, he sat up on the bed, swung his legs round, looked at a non-existent watch. He didn't have a watch on, but he looked like that. He said, oh, don't you think we ought to go home? It's time to take the dog out. And that was the first thing he'd said in 2 years, the first sentence. Do you know, and this is, I mean, it makes my heart warm. And I've got to admit, this is the best result I've had with dementia. He went home, and within 2 days, he was walking, talking, whistling, singing. By the end of the week, he was eating with a knife and fork, and a fortnight he could get himself in and out the shower. He didn't have to go into a home. He only lived another 2 years, but his wife had her husband back for 2 years, and he could actually tell her when he had a pain in his back or he had a headache. And the sad thing was that he caught pneumonia. They took away the sound box in hospital. Oh, you can't have that. Filled him full of stuff, and he was dead within about 3 days. Bang. So I didn't cure him because he was very far gone with dementia, but I did give him back a quality of life that helped him. Joe was a 21-year-old. I've been told. I have to finish now, but I have a million stories. So this is my final thing. Sound is an amazing tool when used for the betterment of all humanity. Be mindful of your responses and your emotions, your thoughts and choices, because they matter in your own body. They create your entire health and well-being. And as I said, in an emergency, sing, tone, make a tuneful noise, it helps. And yes, you can read that. It's all about using low frequency. Who you really are matters. Don't neglect yourself. Give yourself as much attention as you give to others. And be empowered to use this in some form to heal yourself. Don't go straight to the doctor. Think about what you can do. Because I think this is indeed the medicine of the future. And that's my email if you want to get in touch with me. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, I could have gone on and on.